All set?
Yep.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm Brian Moran. I'm the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Washington, and I'm very pleased to have this media availability event for an important topic to the district, important topic to me personally. I have been a prosecutor for about 25 of my 32 years as a lawyer. That's the vast majority of my time as a lawyer. And what I found as a prosecutor is that the vast majority of that time, the 25 years, is spent on one side of the criminal justice coin, and that is incarceration and allocating the amount of time that an offender is supposed to do or should do or is expected to do under sentencing reform laws and various guideline provisions. In those 25 years, I've spent very precious little time looking at the other side of the coin, and that is that the hope and the expectation at the end of incarceration that the incarcerated person will be released into our communities, and will have a full and meaningful life after that. And that's a win-win for everybody. It's a win-win for the formerly incarcerated person. It's a win for the community. It's a win for the criminal justice system. And really, it's a win for prosecutors. We are not in this business just to put people away for the sake of putting people away. We want them to come out. We want them to lead productive lives. I have a few speakers who will articulate these points in a moment. But I'm particularly pleased, he's not seated up here, as Chief District Court Judge Martinez is here. And I point him out because as I mentioned, I've been a prosecutor for 25 years. I have done literally thousands of sentencings myself. Friday afternoon, I just, by happenstance, walked into Judge Martinez's courtroom, and I heard some words that were very simple. He's probably articulated them many times before, but they really resonated with me. And I think they'll resonate with the folks that are watching this today. He said quite simply to a man standing before him being sentenced on a very significant, serious crime involving victims and large amounts of money, he said this, I'm sentencing for what you hear today for what you've done, not who you are or who you can become. He said, I'm sentencing you for what you've done, not for who you are or what you can become. And it's interesting that having done thousands and thousands of sentencings, I've never heard it articulated quite that way. And that's why we're here today, because what we hope through the efforts of the district and the people that I have a privilege to work with, and I'll introduce here momentarily, that we'll focus somewhat on who formerly incarcerated people can become. Joining me here today, Amy Jaquette, an assistant United States attorney in my office who leads up our reentry efforts. To her left is Jennifer Wellman with the Federal Public Defender's Office. And then immediately to her left is Anna Johnson from U.S. Probation, and she'll talk about probation's involvement. Most importantly, I'm really pleased to see Chris Chapman here. Chris can talk about being formerly incarcerated and his reentry into society and leading a productive, meaningful life. And I think we'll save the best for last. So with that, I'll start off with you, Amy.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you all for being here. I want to start by saying that I am very appreciative of the support that I have from my office and also from all of these partners up here for our work and our participation in reentry, because without their collective commitment and without what some see as unlikely partnerships, we wouldn't have been able to do any of these programs. So two things that we wanted to highlight that our office has been working on. You all hopefully have a copy of our reentry guide that we produced along with these other agencies that are here today. We produced the guide because we were going into FDCC TAC and talking with inmates and getting a lot of the same questions over and over again. And so our probation office, through Anna, came up with the great idea of why don't we create a guide that answers these frequently asked questions for people who are coming out of the federal system. And that's what we did. And what is unique, I think, about this guide is, first of all, there are a couple of other U.S. attorneys' offices that have done reentry resource guides that are somewhat similar, but I believe that this is the only one that exists that addresses particular questions that people who are in the system have, who are releasing federally and also who are releasing into this district. The guide, as you will see, starts with a letter. And the letter itself is a pretty powerful thing. It's from my office, from the probation office, from the Federal Public Defender, and from the Bureau of Prisons, and all of us collectively sending the message in that letter that no matter who you are what crime you committed, how much time you spent in the system. We all want you to succeed, and we all have an interest in making that success possible. The questions that are in this guide are also something that makes it unique because they're not from us. We didn't come up with all of these questions ourselves. We actually sent questionnaires into FDCC TAC, and we asked people what questions they wanted answers, what questions they needed answers to. And then we used those as the basis for the guide. And the final thing that I want to highlight about the guide is that we enjoyed some amazing collaboration with our partners on this. We spent 2 years putting this together and rehashing answers and coming up with answers and trying to create something that would provide clear information and transparent information. Even though we have very different roles in the justice system, but that would provide people with hopefully a place to start on what is a very difficult journey ahead. The other program that we wanted to highlight that the U.S. Attorney's Office is involved in is our Outstanding Warrants Initiative. So as you all may know, warrants provide a major barrier to people who are trying to reenter the community. They prevent, in the federal system, prevent folks from getting into certain Bureau of Prisons programs. They prevent them from getting into halfway houses. And so we got together with these same partners and we tried to come up with a program that would help folks to relieve those warrants. So in our federal system, when somebody comes into the system with a federal warrant, we take referrals of those warrants. And we look at them as prosecutors, and then we make a call to the local prosecutor who is involved in prosecuting that case. And we basically just open the discussion there. So we talk to them about their case, we talk to them about what their interests are in the case, and we try to come up with a way that there is to resolve that warrant so that it is not preventing the person from programming. And so we have done that in a number of warrants in this district. We started this program in December of 2018. Mr. Chapman was actually one of our first people to come through the program. And I'm pleased to say that we're successful in about half of the cases that we see in coming up with some way that we can resolve the warrant. And sometimes that's through quashing the warrant and resetting it for a hearing date that's later. Sometimes it is through adopting the case and leaving it out in sort of a global resolution. Sometimes it's through dismissing the case altogether, but whatever the way is, whatever the resolution that we come up with, and we always do this with the local prosecutors very heavily involved, it means that the warrant itself is no longer on the books. The person can program, they can get into a halfway house, and they can walk out of the prison doors without that hanging over their heads. So I'm very excited about the work that we are doing, and I'm going to turn it over now to my extraordinary partner in this, Jennifer Wellman of the Federal Public Defender's Office.
Amy, and thank you, Brian, for having this event and inviting our office. In reentry matters, my office's practice has always valued being proactive instead of reactive in helping our clients succeed. So in that vein, we have always felt very fortunate to be in this district with a probation department that not only respects our role and our unique relationship with our clients, but also appreciates the benefit of working together to help our clients in a proactive, supportive way. But clients do not always know or trust that it's okay to ask for help. And in my experience, it also seemed that despite the good intentions of folks inside the jails, that the lessons or resources available to clients inside did not necessarily translate to the halfway house or supervision. And there were also a number of resources out in the community that did not get to our clients. So my interest and the interests in the office was to see if we could bridge those gaps in the reentry process and help clients better succeed in their transition back into the community. And our thought was to become involved earlier rather than waiting until they in fact release. So as a result, we've welcomed the opportunity to work with partners within the Bureau of Prisons, both in the Reentry and Education Department, as well as the warden and others, to meet regularly to see how we could improve the system. We've welcomed and so appreciate the opportunity to participate in reentry programs that are held inside the jail before our clients and others are getting ready to transition. And we've welcomed the steps that the U.S. Attorney's Office in this district has been willing to take, particularly with respect to the warrants and the brochure that Amy just discussed, both of which I believe are great first steps in terms of removing barriers that a lot of folks face when they're transitioning out into the community, and definitely are demonstrative of what Amy talked about, of at least saying in our actions and our words that the stakeholders do care about our clients' success. I think these steps forward have required a lot of time, a lot of thoughtful communication, a lot of mutual respect, even if we don't agree, as well as a willingness to work together. And for that, I am incredibly grateful, as is my office. And our intention is to keep doing so with hopes that we can continue to improve upon the steps that we've made, as well as the lives of the people in our community who are not defined by their mistake, but certainly have a number of barriers that are in the way of them moving forward from their past. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Anna Johnson. I'm the reentry specialist with U.S. Probation and Pretrial Services in this district. And one of our goals, our primary goals on supervised release, is community safety. The only way that we can effectively do this is to address those barriers with regard to transition from custody to the community. For example, identification is a huge barrier, something that we may take for granted, but you need your identification to get your social security card, for employment, for gym memberships, whatever it may be. So we partnered with the Department of Licensing to streamline that process, whereby individuals can bring their red BOP commissary card, one that they get within the institutions, utilize that with a verification form letter from our office to retrieve their identification. That has in turn increased the amount of time that people are able to be employed, to get their benefits. And so that's a very big barrier with regard to transition. Other ways our office assists in the reentry process is to collaborate with community partners. Every reentry journey is different, and if we know the benefits of what we'll provide for the folks on supervision and really grant that connect individuals to their specific needs. Everyone's reentry journey is different, so the more knowledge we have with community resources, the better we are and the more effective we are in the probation department to help folks transition out of custody. I'm a participant in the Community Partnership of Transition Solutions Group, which has 11 chapters across the state. It is comprised of various federal, state, and local agencies with a shared mission to support individuals and family in their transition. A common issue throughout the state is child support. And without knowing about child support and modifying that support system, people are coming out of custody with $40,000 in debt. With our partnership within the community, the Child Support Department has offered us information so that we can support those that are transitioning out of custody. Oftentimes, when people are coming out with significant debt, we're looking at perhaps suspended licenses because of child support issues, underground employment, reverting to criminal activity to support themselves in the community. So with that in mind, we, as the probation officer, are looking into support within the community to address some of those issues. We also partner with individuals who have experienced success on supervision. You will hear shortly from Chris Chapman here in a moment. When we recognize the successes, big and small, we provide opportunities for individuals who have experienced success to come into the facilities, into the institutions to share their stories. It is often that peer mentorship makes a huge difference as opposed to us as probation officers advising people of how to succeed on supervision. So with that in mind, I'm going to introduce here Christopher Chapman.
Good morning. I'm Chris Chapman. First off, I'd like to thank Brian, Jenny, Anna, and Amy, because without their willingness to try to help people with reentry, we wouldn't have programs like these that actually help you from the beginning with your warrants, with your reentry programs, with your family reunifications, with whatever steps that you decide to take. as long as the information's out there while folks are incarcerated and they have plenty enough time, you know, it helps with them becoming a productive citizen when they come out into the streets. Like they say, like they were hitting on, with people from the community, partners from the community, second chance companies, people that are willing to take a risk and help us, people like myself, come out, be a productive citizen with IDs, jobs, as long as we're willing to take the steps to do the right thing. That's pretty much it. If we had a little bit more support and a little bit more information, I think these programs would actually be more than beneficial, as long as we have it out there for us. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Chris. I think we have a few questions, maybe. Happy to take them. I probably will defer most of them to the experts in the room, but I'm happy to field them.
Well, first, can we hear a little bit more from Chris? I mean, can you tell us just in your personal story, how did this play out?
And Chris, I'm sorry, you'll want to go back up to the podium. Sorry. We all want to be able to hear you.
Taller podiums.
That's right.
All right, so this, from my basic story, upon being sentenced, that we noticed that I had a couple of warrants. So the warrant squashing started then. They started talking to other prosecutors. You know, it stopped me from getting my license when I got out to be productive. So everybody worked with each other. Allowed it to get it squashed while I was in the inside, and so I can start paying my fines, start getting in a program, so that way productively when I get out, here we go, instead of an identification, now I got a license. Now I got a better step up, you know, to maybe a better paying job, anything that's open to me.
And how long have you been out?
As of the 16th will be 6 months.
6 months. And are you still on supervision?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
How long were you in?
I was in for 3 years.
Do you mind if we ask what landed you in federal prison?
Made a dumb mistake in possession of a firearm.
So, what are you doing now? Where are you staying? Are you working?
So since my release, I was lucky enough to have information about some of the partners in the community for Second Chance Company. Right now, Metropolitan Improvement District, you know, part of the DSA, has given me the chance to, you know, for gainful employment and help me in various ways, you know, from housing to employment to other resources, you know, classes that they offer, teaching with them, better promote oneself. And as long, really, if we have we have more companies like this to step forward. You know,
Yeah.
There's
So-
the only way to go is up.
What are you doing for work?
Right now, I'm part of the downtown ambassador. I clean up the streets to keep the streets safe for the tourists, everybody walking down the street, average pedestrian, help provide information if somebody needs to, you know, figure out where to try to locate something.
Cool. You like it?
I like it. Actually, I like the interaction with the community. I like being able to help people and know that, you know, these people ain't looking on me because of my past. I'm better in myself, and, you know, a positive interaction always puts you one step forward.
So when you were in prison, how did you find out about these programs?
Well, as we had these packets in for as soon as you go through the process of being admitted into prisons, you know, they do give you resources, you know, in education. They do show you that, you know, you got warrants, you can take these, you can help with this, you know. They do offer various information packets that show you step by step if you want to do a reentry, any type of reentry program, if you want to do like family reunification programs, it's all there. Information's there in your case managers, your public defenders, the probation department, anybody there. All you have to do is ask. It's open for everybody.
Of those programs, which would you say was the most helpful? Like, what did you get out of one or two of the particular ones?
The best ones I would say was probably the school, the warrant squashing one, because it helped me with a lot of, you know, like I had a couple traffic tickets that went into collections that were stopping me, you know. Because of this program, it allowed me to, you know, obtain my driver's license when I got out. Another one I would say would be probation and part of the family reunification process. I'm allowed to, travel now to go see my kids in a different state, all because of, the steps I took.
How many kids do you have?
I have 5 kids.
How old are they?
23, 11, 10, 7, 5.
Wow. All right. So they've been very helpful to you, but have you had any ideas on what they could add to it to make it even better for other folks behind you?
For other folks behind me, I think it's just if in partnership, everybody can come together and just get the information out a little bit earlier, more on the BOP side. And, like, oh, these are the partners, these are the people out here to help you. This is what you can do. If you contact these people, these are the steps you can take. We can get this done earlier rather than later to help you with, transitioning to your halfway house, to the streets, wherever you go. If they had the information just a little bit sooner, I think everything would run a little bit smoother.
Well, and what's your advice to those people? Because I would guess that there are some in there, I don't know what percentage it would be, but that might be a little resistant to, these people have locked me up and now they're trying to help me. You know what I'm saying?
Ask for help. Ask for help, and don't think that you can just take everything on upon yourself. These programs are here in place to work as long as you're willing to ask for help and willing to take that extra step and learn something new. Be like, okay, I don't know all the answers to this. I don't know how to get out. I don't know what I'm going to do. Well, that's what these programs are here for. As long as you're willing to open your eyes, work it, they're always here for you.
Did you have your own? Did you have your own reservations seeing people come forward and offering you this kind of help or these kind of programs? I mean, did you think like, they're not really going to help me?
No, I didn't come into this. Look, I came into it with, with no expectations. I'm like, okay, they say they're offering to help. They say that we're going to try to do this. They never said that it was going to get done. They said, we're going to try. Let's work together and see what we can do. And we, together, we accomplished it all. We took the necessary steps. I had to go through different programs, whether public defender, probation, prosecutors, and we all worked together, and I'm standing here before you now.
And what happened to those traffic tickets that were elections, the other warrants? I mean, did other charges get dropped? Did traffic tickets just get wiped out? Like what?
No, they allowed me to go on a payment plan to start paying everything. They understood the situation that I was in. I'm paying for my mistakes. Well, let's help them out a little bit. Okay, I understand I owe this money. Can I set up a payment plan? So, working with the prosecutor's office in other counties, they let me set up payment plans. They let me do the necessary steps I needed to make that I could possibly make, and they helped me where they could. They're like, okay, this is what we can do for you to allow you to get this back. And here I am.
And are you in touch with other folks that you knew when you were in custody? Are you talking to them about going through the same stuff? I mean,
Anybody that asked me that I've formerly known before, that I've seen on the street, that is just currently in the halfway house or anything, like, well, how did you do it? Okay, well, no problem. You want to know how I did it? Here's how I do it. I refer them to second chance companies. I tell them to talk to your probation officer. I tell them to call your public defender, because there's a list of opportunities out there that you may not know about because we didn't hear it from the inside. But once we step out, we have more information. If we had this information a little bit earlier and we could access it a little bit earlier, I think the transition would be a lot smoother.
So there was a couple of bumps in the road then.
Yes, there was a couple of bumps in the road.
What happened?
Mainly government shutdown.
I don't know if there's anything anybody can do about that, right?
No. Nothing to do on the community reentry parts like that. It was just unforeseen circumstances.
So what were the practical effects of that for you? I mean, how did it create a hurdle for you?
What, for the government
Yeah,
shutdown?
the shutdown.
Halfway house didn't go through. Unforeseen circumstances, but it's not due on the part of the prosecutors.
No, right.
Themselves.
But did you have to? I mean, so halfway house didn't go through. Did you have to find other housing? What was the?
Yeah, lucky enough for me, I had, family support coming out, and they're like, okay, you did the right thing. Well, what are you going to do? So I detailed my plan out with them in my probation department and knocked them out one by one.
All set, everybody?
Oh,
Oh.
back away.
Okay.
Could I get a sense of like sort of when these things went into effect, so like when the handbook started getting distributed or when the ID program started going into effect? Like how new is this stuff?
So
Amy.
the handbook was released in December of 2018 for the first time, and it is now being distributed on a quarterly basis at FDCC TAC to people who are within 6 months of release. And the warrant program actually started right around December of 2016, so we've had it a little over 2 years now.
Is 6 months enough time?
The reason for the 6 months, I think, is that that's when the Bureau of Prisons starts considering putting people into halfway house. So that's their time frame, not mine. But I think the earlier people plan for release, the better. As soon as they get picked up and are sent in prison, it's to their advantage, I think, to start planning and start thinking about what their plan is going to be when they get out.
Are you doing things, I mean, obviously it makes sense that this kind of thing would help people as they're getting released. Are you doing things to track this or track the outcomes at all?
We are definitely tracking the warrant program and tracking how many warrants are referred in and what the resolution is and how, whether and how we're able to resolve them. And as I think I said earlier, about half of them that we have referred into our program are resolved in one way or another. In terms of the guide, we're going in, all of our partners here are going into FDCC TAC and asking for feedback from the people who are there. And I anticipate that if we get feedback that we need to make updates to, that we will probably do that.
Have there been any efforts to sort of correlate these programs with recidivism rates or measure that impact?
I think it's too early probably to do something like that, but perhaps down the line we'll be able to look at our warrant program for that.
If the sentence is done, say the 3 years, but there's a warrant out, are they able to leave, or does he have to start, like when the sentence is up and there's an outstanding warrant? I mean, so can he do nothing when they leave?
So
Like,
if
if
there's
that
an
makes sense.
outstanding warrant
Yeah,
that is not resolved and the person is up to their release date from
yeah,
prison,
and then so they can't start to get out, right? I mean, they're just.
they will just be directly released into, as I think is what Mr. Chapman was talking about.
Okay.
So they have to have a housing plan.
Okay, and if that isn't there, then they,
Yeah, I mean, so they need a friend or a housing
Okay.
place that they can go, but they won't go into the halfway houses they would typically
Okay.
to finish out their sentence.
thank you.
Can you talk a little bit more? I mean, I think the press release referenced, the district being a leader on this issue. Can you talk a little bit more, or Brian, can you talk a little bit more about what are you seeing from other, other interests from U.S. attorneys' offices around the country, or from other federal agencies, criminal justice agencies around the country?
Yeah, I will tell you, having just come back from the U.S. Attorney's meeting in D.C., the interest is there. I just don't think the programming is there yet. I'm very lucky. When I took my position, I inherited a program that was truly trend-setting. And as I often say, as U.S. Attorney, I get a lot of credit for things I have nothing to do. My goal is to make sure that this program continues. We do it aggressively. And I was commenting to Amy and Jennifer and Anna and Chris this morning that this would be a perfect topic to bring to the U.S. Attorney's meeting. I think there are probably bits and pieces of it. I'm not sure the whole structure that we have here is in place.
Jennifer, do you want to talk a little bit? I'm just wondering if there is more that you think the U.S. Attorney's Office should be doing in this regard, or what else would you like to see? I mean, you're coming at this from another angle.
That's a great question. I think what we've learned is that the more we communicate and the more we take steps forward, that new ideas surface. So for instance, this morning when we were meeting as a group and getting to know Mr. Chapman and hear his story, I was reminded not only of the glitches that remain in the system, but simple steps forward that we could take with each other's support. Sometimes we just agree, or sometimes it's as a collective, we can go to the Bureau of Prisons and say, we all agree this is a good idea. So for instance, in Mr. Chapman's case, with respect to the warrants, under the glitch in the Bureau of Prisons is if those warrants are cleared beyond the 6 months before you're released, it doesn't matter if they're cleared at 5 months before you're released. You've lost your placement in a halfway house. So someone in his circumstances doesn't get the benefit of transitioning back into the community with the support that they have at the halfway house. So I think we've talked about other ideas in terms of how can we communicate with folks that are on the inside that it's important to call us earlier rather than later. In his case, I believe it started with another person who was incarcerated saying, hey, you should just call your public defender, which he did, which then gave rise to a paralegal who knew to call Amy as well as Anna's Johnson's office, and so we could coordinate. So, one idea is let's see if the warden would agree to post within the unit the importance of resolving warrants at 9 months before you're released. And I will say the Bureau of Prisons have been very receptive to working with us as community partners, which we really appreciate. I think the other thing that Amy and I have talked about is getting into the halfway house and doing a similar program that we do inside the jail, but at the halfway house to just further reiterate everyone wants you to succeed. Do you have any questions? How can we help you? And I think through those programs we've come up with, okay, there's more glitches and there's more areas where we can help. But I do think I think it's pretty remarkable that Brian's office and Amy, and I find her extraordinary as well, that she's reimagining the way a prosecutor should see their role. And I think there are studies circulating around the nation of how important that is. And I think, I have the utmost respect for this office that they are embracing this dialogue and willing to see that these are first steps that we can only learn from and grow to improve not only the justice system, but the lives of individuals in our community.
Jennifer, why is 6 months the point of no return?
It's a great question. I have no idea. We should have someone from the Bureau of Prisons here. We don't, but I don't know why, but that was discovered in one of our meetings that were hosted by the U.S. attorneys, where representatives of the Bureau of Prison made that clear, that if we miss that deadline, then folks on the inside will not get the benefit. And if you do have a warrant on your books, whether it's municipal court or something else, it impacts your programming. So even though Mr. Chapman was able to do a lot of programming, there's a lot of stuff that he wasn't allowed to do while the warrant was still on his record, and that happens to quite a few people.
So, and I don't mean to get too deep in the weeds here, but you had mentioned, for example, 5 months and you've lost your place. Is it that then if it's at 5 months, somebody like Chris has to figure out something to do for a month and then can get into a halfway house? Or is that like just how long it delays your placement in one of those places?
To my knowledge, you can't get to the halfway house
At all.
unless you've worked with Anna Johnson, who's